Welcome to the Tangible Truth Podcast Summer Best of Series, where we replay your favorite episodes of the Tangible Truth Podcast from this year. So whether you're re-listening or hearing them for the first time, we pray that you are blessed, encouraged, and challenged. So enjoy, and we will see you again in August for all new episodes.
How important is it to talk about this like a drug?
I think it's really important. I think when people start understanding the brain science, it actually lowers the shame a little bit.
I'm Susan Goss, and as a seasoned therapist of more than 15 years, I'm honored to have had the opportunity to gain so much wisdom from so many people and love passing that knowledge on to others. So join me and some of my favorite friends as we share some tangible truths with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tangible Truth Podcast. I am so excited about the month of February's podcast. I have got two of my favorite people here.
Wow. It's an honor.
It is.
And one of them is Ted Shimer, who has written the book, The Freedom Fight, the New Drug and the Truths That Will Set You Free. And it's a book about pornography and the fight against pornography. And so, Ted, it's a magnificent book. You have done a wonderful job in the way that you talk about the pornography, the root cause of pornography. That's what I love about it. It's not A causes B at all process. And I love your approach with it. So thank you so much for being a guest this month talking about pornography. The new stats are just horrible that have
Depressing.
come out. They really are depressing. But, you know, the listeners need to hear it. We don't know what we don't know. That's my statement on everything. And so knowledge is very valuable. It's important. And so thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and also just for your courage to be able to talk about these topics, because unfortunately a lot of churches or ministries, don't want to touch the topic. And so I appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely. It's a very important topic. And then also with us today is Hunter House. I love Hunter House.
I love Susan Goss.
Who does not love Hunter House? And rearranged everything around Hunter House, didn't we?
Stop it.
Absolutely. Because we wanted him with us. And so, Hunter, thank you so much for coming.
Well, this is unique for me too, because both of you have a part of my story. You've played a part in my story. Susan, just with you as a counselor and helping me process through a lot of different types of brokenness that I've experienced, but also just early in ministry. Ted was one of those first people who started talking about these things in a way that gave courage to others to be able to open up and process, especially those of us in ministry where sometimes it feels like, can we talk about our own struggles and issues? So I love both of y'all and really appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
That's so kind, Hunter. And Hunter has great insight on a lot of things. Every time he opens his mouth, I go, well, except for one thing, and I will never let him live it down.
I have no idea what you're about to say.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And listeners, y'all want to hear about it? I know Ted does, because he doesn't know what
to hear.
Okay, I want to tell you. Let's just start off with something good and happy and fun. But it wasn't fun for me. Okay, we joined fellowship years ago. Years ago. And Hunter was up and he goes, listen, I would like, it was at the end of the service, and I don't know what he was talking about. But anyway, he said, if you are, well, it wasn't years ago.
Yeah, you're about to age yourself. Go ahead.
It wasn't years ago. He goes, if you are 65 or older, please stand up. And I looked at Steve and I thought, you have got to be kidding me. That little punk. I thought, I cannot believe he just said that. We just joined the church and everybody's going to think I'm 110.
Had you just turned 65, like
I did.
a week or two before
yeah,
that?
like the day before or something. And I stood up and I texted Chad, our oldest son, and I went, I cannot stand. I used to love Hunter House, and he was just dying laughing. Hunter was, Chad was, and so anyway, I told Hunter, I said, you are to never ever ask people's age or ask them to stand up.
I mean, that's almost as bad as asking, hey, if you struggle with porn, why don't you go and stand up?
Exactly. Thank you, Ted.
Not quite as bad. Almost.
Not one of my finer moments. It's okay. There's forgiveness and grace for us all.
Yes, I've forgiven you.
Thank you.
But obviously haven't forgotten
No,
it.
it's okay. It's okay.
So anyway, moving along. We're going to talk about the issue of porn, listeners, and it's very prevalent. That's putting it mildly. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have Ted, if you don't mind, to go ahead and talk about the new stats on porn. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
So these came out in September of 2024, and these are for practicing Christians, and so. The Barna Group defined a practicing Christian, somebody who identifies with Christ, that, hey, I'm a follower. They attend church regularly, and they say their faith is very important to them.
Okay.
So it's not just somebody who claims to be a Christian. These are practicing Christians. So of practicing Christian men, 78% say they watch porn. And of practicing Christian women, 34%. But when you go to the younger age groups, the millennials, those 28 to 43, it's 91% of practicing Christian millennial men, 67% of practicing Christian millennial women, and then for Gen Z, 73% of practicing Christian women, and 83% for the Gen Z men. Again, practicing Christians.
Pretty staggering.
Yeah, it is pretty staggering. Like. Are you, Hunter, being in the church, are you surprised by those stats?
I'm very saddened by them. I'm not surprised by them. You could have read 100% and I wouldn't have been that surprised because I've witnessed just through pastoral care and counseling how prevalent it is. And that with younger generations, it just continues to get higher. Accessibility has gotten so much easier. And I think there's a lot of factors to that, but yeah, not surprised. Very sad, but not surprised.
One of the surprising stats is of those who are watching, of the practicing Christians who are watching porn, what percentage would you guess say, man, they want to get porn completely out of their life? Now we would hope it'd be 100%, right? 21%.
That one I'm surprised about.
Yeah.
And deeply saddened about.
Yeah.
Right. 21% of practicing Christians who watch porn want to quit.
Want to give it up completely.
50%
say, hey, they're okay with the amount of porn they're watching. Another 20 or so percent are like, hey, I want to kind of cut it back some. But only 21% say, hey, I want to get it out of my life.
And I know you can't see this through statistics, but I wonder how much of that is people not wanting to and people just feeling helpless, like there's no shot, so I'm just locked in. Because if that's the case, then like that's just not true. And that's some of the things we get to talk about is like, man, there is hope in this and you don't have to live hopeless through it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, don't think true freedom, lasting freedom is possible. And so, that is important for people to realize that, hey, freedom is possible.
So, or that's how addictive it is. That's how addictive it is, Ted. And the research shows that people are that desperate, they give up everything. They'll get to that. In therapy, a therapeutic term, it's the addictive cycle, the addictive-based cycle of porn. It's called the tolerance-based addictive cycle. And that's somebody that gets that desperate that they would do anything for the next hit. Now, they'll never get it, but they keep trying. And that's what your research proved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That the amount of dopamine that's released in the brain when, somebody's, watching porn and they climax to it, that's the highest reward that our brains give.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people get used to this, unnatural level of dopamine. And as a result, the everyday pleasures of life aren't that pleasurable anymore.
Right.
And they get bored and they really don't enjoy life, except, man, they have to start, getting a hit just to feel normal.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that's the hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the hopelessness comes from.
Well, especially because that same level of hit doesn't provide the same level of dopamine for very long.
No.
And so even in that, not only can you not find it anywhere else, but now even going back to the same source, you're having to increase and get deeper into sin. How important is it to talk about this like a drug? And is that something that people are willing to talk about pornography like a drug?
And I think it's really important, for a couple reasons. One, I think when people start understanding the brain science, it actually lowers the shame a little bit in the sense of, oh, this isn't just because I'm a worthless pervert, but there's actually some brain science that, man, my brain has been rewired. And you can, renew your mind as the scripture tells us.
Yes.
So I think it's a very important topic for people to understand that piece of it, that it can relieve the shame, but also give hope.
Yeah, just like cocaine and amphetamines, cocaine, porn, drugs. Yes, I think it really helps put it in that framework as a drug.
Well, and
dopamine.
Addiction experts tell us when we start using a drug, whether it's cocaine or alcohol, to medicate our negative emotions, that's when an addiction goes really deep. And what most people stuck on porn don't realize is they've been using porn as their medication.
Right.
Hey, when I'm stressed, this is where I go. When I'm lonely, depressed, bored, and it becomes, that place they go, and the brain goes into relief mode because, well, hey, if you're stressed, your brain wants to bring relief and it knows where it can go. So when you're stressed, and if you've been using porn to medicate your stress, the next time you're stressed, your brain releases dopamine to start the craving to go down that porn pathway. Hey, I know where we can go to feel a whole lot better. And when people start understanding that, because most people don't realize they're using porn as a medication, that, hey, when I feel a certain way, when I feel down, this is where I go because, hey, it makes me feel a lot better, at least for a little bit.
One of the things that, and correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, but when I think about that related to even, let's, compare alcohol, like I can partake in alcohol even as a believer in a way that isn't trying to medicate or as addiction or overuse or things like that. And so there's a little bit of a line there that you can cross where it gets to that. With pornography, there's no way to engage in it in a way that is not sinful. As I think through even just counseling men and women through premarital, or when I was in student ministry, thinking through how really there's a level of intimacy that we all crave emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And engaging in sexual sin breaks all three of those in a way that other sins may not get to that depth. And so even in the recovery of that, it's just a much deeper recovery for us and understanding, because it's tied to every aspect of our body, especially as Christians. Like we're breaking fellowship with the Lord when we engage in these things. We're sinning against our body. There's emotional baggage that comes with it. Like it's just so deeply affecting us in so many ways.
Yeah. And I think, again, getting back to the hope piece, that because it does touch every area, that in order to find freedom, the truths of the gospel and, need to touch every area. And really that's what we're seeing is, hey, when somebody finds freedom, man, it's brought freedom and, new life in so many different areas that they didn't realize were being impacted.
It's been said in that porn is truly a longing for God. And so, to your point, the whole of the soul, there's a true longing that you're searching for constantly.
I think it's that longing for intimacy.
I do too.
Yes.
And we know that like our ultimate form of intimacy is going to be with
God.
the one who created us. And so even people who may not believe in God or follow Jesus, like there's still that craving of intimacy. They just don't know that that's what they're searching for. I mean, I don't want this to be part of my story. Like when I think about getting invited into these conversations, I wish this wasn't part of my story, but the truth is it is. And as much as it's broken many aspects of my life, I have to be grateful that God has also redeemed it in my life. One, because it does provide, hope for others, but two, because now I get to live that out. And I think a lot of that rewiring and understanding of my story moving towards health really had to do with what you're talking about, of understanding like that this isn't just I've made a bad decision. There are things that are rewired in me. I have to take this before the Lord. I needed counseling. I needed a small group of men in my life. Like there were many, many steps that I needed, but the Lord has used those to transform me into a better image of him. And I'm very grateful for that.
How did yours begin?
Innocently. It wasn't, someone else coming into my life and exposing anything to me. It was me being a curious, I don't remember the exact age, 11 or 12-year-old. And, I'm 36 now. And so I've kind of grown up with a lot of technology introductions. So I remember getting high-speed internet or dial-up internet as a kid, having just been exposed to this through actually satellite TV through a blurry channel. That's where it happened for me. In a room by myself, again, just innocently flipping through channels, and bam, I saw something. And I grew up in a generation, because everything was just kind of coming online, that we didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know other people struggled, or like there was no one saying like, hey, this is a thing. I just kind of naturally just kept getting curious, and that sin just kept driving deeper, and just so much level of shame. And so it really wasn't until college till I started meeting with a guy named Jordan Oaf, who's on staff with Crew at the University of Arkansas, and started to process some of this sin with him, that I started to experience those first levels of freedom. So, I mean, that would have been 8 years of cycles being built up before it really became something that I felt comfortable talking about. A lot of shame, a lot of brokenness, and no one knew.
Well, and I think that's an important point, because there's shame with any addiction, but particularly for the Christian who struggles with a porn or a sex addiction. There's kind of some added levels to it. One of the things that came out from the Barna stats were that 50% of practicing Christians who are watching pornography have never told anybody.
Right.
So it's they're living in silence.
Right.
They're in the shadows.
And I bet you that number was higher as I was growing up. And so there are some positives to it being as rampant as it is. I hate to even say that's a positive, but we are able to talk about it now.
Right.
And so I think the pathway to freedom is a little bit more accessible and easy, because I didn't even know it was something to talk about. I'm learning all of this on my own as a 12 to 14-year-old, teaching and exploring, and just terrible. So that's changed how I want to parent my own kids. I have 3 sons, and how I want to have so many conversations early that my parents probably didn't even know they needed to have, because that wasn't a thing that they had experienced growing up. But now that I have, and I know it's there, I'm like, I want to get on the front end of a lot of this with my own kids, because I know they're going to have some of the tendencies that I have.
Absolutely.
They got my DNA. Yeah. I see it in the good ways. I see it in the bad ways.
Well, and they have opportunity to be exposed in so many different ways than you did as well today. This conversation is magnificent, and we're going to continue it on the next podcast. Believe it or not, we're out of time on this podcast already. It was like a blur. So listeners, stay tuned and listen to the next podcast, because we are going to continue this conversation right now. And we've only touched the surface, guys.
We've only hit that there's a problem. We got to get to the good stuff.
There is a problem, and it's called porn. But we've got so much more to say. So listen in next week. And the stats that Ted has brought to our attention, we are going to put them on the podcast, on the link, so you can have those stats. And anything that we talk about, Carrie will put on the link for you. So, and it will be easy access for you. So we'll see you next week. Thanks. Love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Tangible Truth Podcast, part of the KLRC Podcast Network.